All right. Well, we should be good to go here. I hope things are looking good on your end there, Brandy.
Yep.
Awesome. So let me just switch screens for a moment.
Did you drop that?
All right. Well, welcome families to today's interview. I'm honored to be joined on the show today by Brandy Bright. Welcome to the podcast, Brandy. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I know we were chatting a little bit in our pre-chat. I hope it's as beautiful and sunny of a day out there in Ohio, I believe, correct?
Yes,
as
we're
it
in
is.
Akron, Ohio area. It's gorgeous today. So nice.
Awesome. Yep. Well, it's beautiful today here too in Michigan, and I'm just so thrilled that we're able to, take a lunch break here and provide some value for our listeners and the people joining us on the live Facebook broadcast. So speaking of, today's format, everyone who's joining us, is going to start with an interview component where we are going to learn all about Brandy and her approach as a mother and business owner and what the family wellness lifestyle looks like for her. And the second part of our time today will be focused on questions and answers from our live audience. So families and people who are listening to us and joining in online, please post in the comments below, even just to say hi. Tell us where you're from, and of course, post any questions for Brandy and myself, and we will be able to address those at the end of our interview today. Well, Brandy, I'm excited to jump into our discussion, but before we get there, we have two questions that we always ask every guest. So help our listeners and myself get to know you more by telling us what family looks like for you. And I love how you have our little visitor with us today on the interview. That's just amazing.
Yeah, so this is Anya. Anya is 9 months old. And family for us, oh my gosh. So we are a blended family of 7 children.
Yes.
So we have a big, fun, crazy, wild family. So Anya is my 3rd baby. And then I have 4 bonus children. So we have children ranging from 9 months up to 18 years old.
Awesome. Absolutely incredible.
It's fun. We love it. Never a dull moment. Everything I do, work-wise or anything with home is based around the kids. So if I can't, involve her, the other kids, I'm not doing it.
Fantastic. Absolutely love it. And another thing, Brandy, that we love to say on the Michigan Family Wellness Podcast is that we are smitten with the mittens. So I know you're down there in Ohio. I'm not going to do any, trash talking or anything like that. But have you ever experienced the Great Lakes or anything that the mitten has to offer?
Coming from here or coming to Michigan?
Either way, I don't know if you're around like the Lake Erie context or anything like that, or.
Well, actually, I just moved down a little bit south towards Akron, but I spent 5 years in Cleveland in Lakewood up by the water.
Okay.
So, yeah, I used to work with a lot of professional athletes, here in Cleveland, and so I spent a lot of time on the water. I would when my kids were little, we would go down and play by the water, and I love Cleveland in the summertime, and it's amazing. It's beautiful here, and yeah, we shouldn't do any sports talking because
right.
I'm sure we're both really passionate, that we're such big rivals, but there's a lot of great stuff to do here.
It's funny. I grew up in Ann Arbor, originally from Ann Arbor. I do enjoy college football and all of that. I really don't get into it that much. I'm much more of a Red Wings fan, personally myself. So the NHL. But yeah, there is a fierce Ohio State U of M rivalry that would be for a different podcast at a different time. So
yes.
Well, anyways, thanks again, Brandy, for taking time out of your busy day, your busy family schedule. But let's go ahead and get more in depth because I really want the women, mothers, and families listening to benefit from your experiences, your expertise, and your unique perspective. So, the whole reason I wanted to ask you on the podcast today is because, the family wellness lifestyle, it has so many benefits, but it's not easy. And I really want the people listening and watching to know that they are not alone. So definitely want to encourage and empower the women and mothers to stay diligent to their convictions for wellness and for health, not only for themselves, but for their family, for their kids, for their spouse, their husbands as well. So what I find makes these conversations so relevant and powerful is just by sharing our stories. So would you mind just sharing your health journey, whether it's, if you want to start pre-kids and then talk us through the story of things you did during your pregnancies and postpartum, and how that really helped establish the family wellness lifestyle that you and your husband model for your kids today?
Absolutely. So like I said, I have 3 children. My oldest will be 12 this year. I don't know that before having kids, I had my first baby at, 23, 24 years old. So I was not looking at being healthy at that age. But then I started going through, I don't even know if you know this, I went through infertility with my first child. So I went through a couple years of surgeries and fertility drugs, and that makes you call into question your health. Mm-hmm. And I was diagnosed with endometriosis. And so I went down this whole fertility journey. And I luckily got pregnant on my first round of the fertility drugs. And that was probably my heaviest pregnancy. Again, I was young and I was just learning about nutrition. And so with that pregnancy, I had some preterm labor issues, and I ended up in some anemia issues, and I ended up giving birth at 37 weeks. He was totally healthy, 6-pound baby. I breastfed him until he was 12 months old. Mm-hmm. Donated. That was my first time donating breast milk, was with my first child. I donated to a milk bank. And then I got pregnant with my second. I guess the drugs they were still in my system, or my body knew what it was doing, or it was ready to go. But he was 11 months old when I got pregnant with my second. And so I breastfed him till he was 12 months, and I had my second baby. And we actually were living in Hawaii when I had my second baby. Okay. So my health journey just went even deeper then. I would get up with a group of women. I mean, you're talking about the beautiful day when we first got on here. Imagine waking up to paradise every morning.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I had a group of moms that we were all military wives, and we would meet in the mornings and we would walk like 3 miles. And so I exercised a lot with that pregnancy and ate really clean. We were by the ocean, fresh fruits and veggies all the time. And with that one, it's kind of interesting. Even with how I ate and how much I exercised, I had hypertension issues and gestational diabetes issues and preterm labor, but then I gave birth at 39 weeks. So my children, and I breastfed her for almost 2 years. It was about 20 months when I weaned her. And, just having children, it taught me so much about nutrition. And, my children there was smash cakes. When they were 1 year old, I wouldn't give them cakes. So I made these sugar-free cakes, and everyone made fun of me back then and told me I was crazy and tried to sneak my children sugar. And so I've kind of always been this way. And so fast forward several years, at the age of 30, I was diagnosed with psoriasis out of nowhere. And it was after a flu shot and a couple rounds of antibiotics for strep throat. Okay. And so that really threw me into my health and wellness journey, as my doctor wanted to put me on, some pretty heavy meds for the psoriasis, and I refused. And I ended up getting it in control through a gluten-free, dairy-free diet. And then that's when I started learning about supplements. And so supplements helped me out. So then, I just had a baby 9 months ago. And so there's almost a 9-year gap between my kids.
Congratulations. That's
amazing. Thank you. And this one, I would have to say, this one was, even though I'm, 10 years older, this was my healthiest pregnancy. And so I completely attribute that to diet and the supplements that I took. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have any of the issues. I think hypertension was the only issue. I'm looking at him if there's anything that I'm leaving out. I think hypertension was the only issue that I had with this pregnancy, but no preterm labor and no gestational diabetes. And, the only difference other than adding age to it was my diet, my nutritional supplements. So, and the chiropractor. I had really bad, which you'll like to hear. I had really bad sciatica with all pregnancies, and I didn't even know to go to a chiropractor when I was younger for it. I just kind of dealt through it with my first 2 babies. And with this one, I went to a chiropractor weekly. And I mean, you would know it was a day before before my appointment to go to the chiropractor, because I could barely walk. I'm like crawling into her office because it was so bad.
Gotcha.
So going weekly throughout the pregnancy made a world of difference. And then we actually now, the baby and I go to the chiropractor weekly. So does my 9-year-old, and she'll be 10 tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But we go weekly for just whole body care. Not to get off subject, but we stopped vaccinating, and that made me find chiropractic care. And so that's kind of been an alternative route in our alternative lifestyle that we've added in. And my 10-year-old she's fully vaccinated, and she deals with anxiety and ADHD and food allergies and all these crazy things that she shouldn't be dealing with. And so we've been seeking chiropractic care for her to kind of help with those too.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to encourage everyone, and thank you, Brandy, just for being so vulnerable and, sharing your story and just kind of helping people connect with you. I do want to encourage people, I usually say this at the end of an interview or a podcast, after someone's like really warmed up and just like drops a knowledge bomb, on the people watching and listening. But everyone really just needs to just use that 30-second rewind button, or just kind of go back and re-listen to everything that Brandy just said there, because there was just a ton of value and information in terms of alternative things that people can do, to really elevate their own personal health and just their family wellness lifestyle. And, that being said, I do want people to realize too, when it comes to having a natural birth and doing some of these things like we're talking about, it's of course ideal if we can have everything go as planned, or, if we have that birth directive and, everything does go quote unquote perfectly, which is ideal. But that being said, I do want to just acknowledge the other side of that, where, there's a reason that we do have the interventions available for when they do, for when they're needed, essentially. So I just want to, insert that for our audience as well. You talked about chiropractic here. Obviously, as a chiropractor, I absolutely love that. I love working with women who are thinking about becoming pregnant, and women who are currently pregnant, just with the low back pain, the headaches, the morning sickness. I can't tell you how many stories I've heard about that. I wanted to insert one other comment in regards to the chiropractic care. Have you heard of this, Brandy, where it's very important for the mother to get adjusted after delivery? And I wanted to explain the reason why. So you're familiar with the hormone relaxin, correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So ever since the first trimester, really, the hormone relaxin is just coursing through the entire expecting mom's body, essentially. All the tissues, all of the joints, all the muscles. And it's preparing those tissues for the natural birth process. So relaxin to help things relax, to lengthen out, to stretch, all those good things. The interesting thing here is that that hormone, the relaxin hormone, actually disappears from blood circulation within 24 hours of delivery, so postpartum. So the application there is whatever position the pelvis is in, whatever position the sacrum is in, whatever position the lumbar spine is in postpartum, within 24 hours, all of that kind of locks down. So that's why it's very important to at least get assessed, at least get checked, for the need for any kind of adjustments, because especially, and we can go into a long discussion on this as well, the positions that women give birth in, there's a lot that goes along with that, and that can really influence structure and alignment, especially during labor and during delivery. Have you heard of that before, or does that kind of make sense?
Oh, it absolutely makes sense. It, and I learned a lot about all of those type of things with this pregnancy, because as I said, I have 3 babies. My first 2 births were births with epidurals, typical hospital births. And my second, I had spinal headaches. I had an awful epidural. It was very traumatic. And I was terrified to give birth this time. And it wasn't that I was scared of the birth. I was scared of the epidural. And so a natural birth was very important to me. And I ended up having a natural birth with this baby and wrote a blog about my experience. And and that's something that moms need to definitely look into and know that you get to control that, and you get to control what happens, and seeking, things like chiropractic care after is so important.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the epidural there. I believe it's called the Tocin epidural, kind of downward spiral, which again, I'm glad we have the epidurals. I'm glad we have Tocin, but I've just heard so many, both anecdotal cases and, some case studies where a pregnancy, or a pre-labor context can be going completely normal. And then all of a sudden we have to do this Tocin epidural, downward, downward, downward. And then all of a sudden you got to do emergency C-section. And it's
Right.
like, wait a second, like everything was fine like a few hours ago, what happened?
Right.
So
Yeah.
again, not to go too off topic and into all that, but for those listening and watching, check out The Business of Being Born. I believe that's the name of the documentary where they really kind of hash out that whole cycle. So awesome. Well, thanks again, Brandy. Can you talk a little bit more about, you mentioned breastfeeding earlier. So again, let's just kind of go into some alternative, maybe not so much alternative, but just some family wellness lifestyle things, maybe as they relate to pregnancy or after pregnancy, or as they relate to your family wellness lifestyle today. Did you do anything in terms of, delayed cord clamping, or did you utilize a doula or a midwife? Can you speak more about that?
Yes. So, like I said, this pregnancy was totally different for me. I was very more aware of, my body and my voice, and I was going to do this how I wanted and the way I wanted it done. And this was my first time using a midwife. I've had regular doctors with the other two births, and I absolutely loved using my midwife. She was amazing throughout my prenatal care. And then she was like, I don't think I could have gotten through the birth without her. So they're very, and he's, that's his job there to do it. And that's a midwife too, to kind of give him backup. And so midwives were amazing. And, being able to choose. Now I was walking the halls, and I was, when you don't get an epidural and you're not tied to the bed, you can get up and move. And so you traditionally think, and even in movies, you have a baby, you're lying on your back screaming. And that's not what a birth has to be.
Right.
And that was my previous two birth experiences. And so, with this one, the midwives had me out walking. I was in the tub. I was in and out of the tub several times. I was bouncing on a birthing ball. I was moving around and squatting and doing what was comfortable for me. So that was really important to me. And then through this pregnancy, prenatal care and care for breastfeeding moms became very important for me personally and professionally. So, like I said, I'm in the health and wellness world, and so I sell nutritional products, and I am so firm about selling something that I believe in, that is safe, that I don't sell, the companies that I'm involved in, I don't sell all their products. I sell a select few products from a couple different companies that I've actually had my own midwives and my holistic docs that I either, go see for my family or just that I'm friends with. I have them look at products before I'll even take them myself. So whether it's something I sell or whether it's something that, I go buy at the store, I don't listen to a company telling me that I can take it. I get an expert to tell me, and then I share that with other moms. So that's been really big for me throughout this journey as well.
Awesome. Yeah, so to go along with what you're saying there, I did want to mention something unique about the latest research actually on human milk, or actually on breastfeeding. So I know you're a huge advocate for it. I'm a huge advocate for it myself. And again, there's just a lot of emotion that goes along, with breastfeeding. So I don't want to put any pressure on mothers, because It is a big deal. I mean, some people aren't able to do it, or sometimes it's painful, or, there's all these different nuances, with people drying up and things like that. So not to put any more pressure on women or mothers, but if you're able to, I think it's one of the most nutritionally sound foods that there is for your kid. I don't advocate for formula. Again, if you have to use it, it's better than absolute nothing. But I did want to insert this, clinical research thing here that I'm just so passionate about. And so that has to do with what's called human milk oligosaccharides, or these very specific sugars that researchers have isolated from actual human milk or breast milk. So what these are, like I said, they're these specific sugars. They're actually more like prebiotics. And what they do is not only do they help encourage the growth of good gut bacteria in kids and in adults, but then they also discourage the growth of the pathogenic bacteria. So for those who might be more savvy, if you've heard of the bifidobacterium, that's what these two prebiotics, these two sugars, are helpful at producing. And if you've heard of, the yeasts, the candidas, the leaky guts, the dysbiosis, that's what this helps discourage. So I just think this is so great, from the terms of, if you're trying to reestablish a functioning gut microbiome, you mentioned some of your kids that have, issues with anxiety, or just depression, or, focus at all. Kids who might be on the spectrum of autism, kids who actually, they did not get the benefits of going through the birth canal, the natural birth process, because that's where our gut microbiome comes from. So many C-sections out there. And again, we could go into a huge discussion on that. But I just feel so passionate about research like this. The science, the studies show that we're able to actually replace and re-encourage the growth of the good microbiomes, and that we can fix and treat a lot of these issues. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. It's, and I'd like to add to that. There's so many options out there other than formula. If you can't, I've always overproduced. I've been extremely lucky, and because I've been so lucky, I donate, and I donate through a milk bank with my first, and now I donate through different sites on Facebook. I mean, it's
awesome.
He'll joke with me, but I'll be like, hey, someone's gonna come by to pick something up tonight, and he's like, am I giving them nutrition or breast milk again?
Right.
What do they come to the house for?
Right.
And so, I've donated to probably 8 or 9 different moms with my 9-month-old.
Right.
And so I just want to encourage moms that, if you can't produce, formula is not your only option. Right. And, there are several ways to go about getting donor milk. And, there's sites on Facebook called Human Milk for Human Babies. And there's a main site, and then there's city or state specific. So Human Milk for Human Babies in Ohio, or in Akron, or in Cleveland. And so you can look these up on Facebook, and, you can reach out to all these moms that like me, that have an oversupply that want to help, or you can go on there and request milk. And if you're not comfortable doing it that way, just from some random person on Facebook, because I get that, there's milk banks, and you can go through the milk banks too. So I always try to encourage moms that, I get it that if you can't produce or breastfeeding's too hard or whatnot, but there are ways to still give your baby those nutrients, because they are so important. So
I love what you're saying there, and it actually reminds me of a story. So my wife and I, Rachel and I, used to live in St. Louis, and our pastor and his wife, actually from our church, so they actually adopted a son, So they're great, loving people. They weren't able to have children naturally on their own. So they decided to adopt, right? Awesome story. Right. Well, so the mom wanted to actually breastfeed, but she wasn't able to because, and again, this is nuanced. I've heard of women being able to, somehow signal their brain and their body to be able to produce, even though they did not actually deliver or give birth. I would say that's very rare. That would be the exception. But there were actually enough mothers, in the community that were currently nursing who were willing to, provide and produce, for this adopted son. And they did that. And that was fantastic. And I was like, wow, what a great way to build community. What a great way to nourish this growing baby boy. So I was just completely amazed. And
that's awesome.
There. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely people out there that want to help. And there's, surprisingly, I'm in a ton of different breastfeeding groups. And so I see all kinds of stories. And you'd actually be surprised. I hear that more often than you'd think of women that have induced lactation without, they're adopting babies and they've trained their bodies to lactate. And so that kind of, again, not to harp on anyone and give them a hard time for not breastfeeding, but there's always a way. And if a woman that has not put her body through a pregnancy can still produce milk, like there's a way.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Brandy. I just really appreciate, how much of an encouragement and how much of an empower you are today on the broadcast, today on the podcast here. I know you've been doing some great work with the Healthy Hustlers group over on Facebook. And I just wanted to give you a chance to, are there any other resources that you would recommend? I know that you mentioned a few earlier, on where people can go and look for human milk and breast milk and things like that. But where would you direct the people listening and the people watching today in terms of, just really easy ways if they're interested in getting involved with more healthy lifestyle things, more wellness lifestyle things, where would you direct them?
Facebook's a great place to start. So like we said, there's lots of breastfeeding pages out there. There's, Human Milk for Human Babies, a great way to, either donate milk or to receive donations. Our Healthy Hustlers lifestyle group is, you're part of the group. It's literally alternative lifestyles, alternative methods to medicine, healthy diet. So, I'd love to have anyone come be part of the Healthy Hustlers group. And then on our website, I'm a blogger. And so I do blogs about, like my birth experience. I do blogs about, we co-sleep and we co-bathe in our house with the little baby. And so I did a blog about, co-bathing and breast milk baths. And so our website's it's MB, Mike and Brandy, mbpowercouple.com. So we have a lot of resources on there. We direct people to, just Healthy Hustlers is probably one of the best ways to start. You can connect to me on Facebook or send me a message on Facebook. If there's anything that you need to reach out about that I can kind of help guide you based on your question, I'm passionate about helping moms.
Awesome. So is there I'm personally curious, is that the kind of coaching context then? Do you do a lot of coaching, either in groups, small groups, or individual? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we kind of tailor that towards, the requests that come in. We do multiple things. So, in Healthy Hustlers, there's over 1,600 members right now, and that's, it's at the end of the day, it's a food group. It's all about clean eating, healthy, healthy food choices. But then we do go into, breastfeeding moms. Because I have an oversupply, I get mastitis a lot. And so I've now learned how to treat my mastitis without antibiotics, which is huge. So, that's one thing we talk about. We do, coaching through, I'm not a doctor and I don't claim to, get rid of your illnesses, but there's supplements and there's things you can do to kind of help symptoms of things you're going through. So that's a one-on-one thing where someone will reach out. In the group we do 30-day workouts. Every month we post a new workout and it's always pinned to the top of the group and it's a daily thing. And I'm kind of a slacker, I'm not gonna lie, I get caught up in my life, but sure. These other women that are doing the workouts with me, they'll post on the days when they do their workouts, and I'm like, oh man, I forgot to do that today. So I'll go and do my workout real quick. Right. So we kind of offer a broad range of things to help people, and we can totally tailor it to whatever they're looking for. Awesome.
Well, Brandy, thanks so much. I think you're doing an awesome job, building community through the Healthy Hustlers group. I think you're doing an awesome job, as a wife, as a mother, as a mompreneur, as the people like to say today, running a business and all of that. I just want to remind everyone listening and watching us here, either live or on the replay, that we are going to have a complete show notes page over at MichiganFamilyWellness.com. And I want to encourage everyone, if they haven't already, click the links below in the comment section, not only to learn more about our discussion today as it relates to the human milk oligosaccharides, but also to click the links for your iPhone and for your Android if you want to join up with the Michigan Family Wellness Podcast. So thanks so much, Brandy. This has been incredible. I really appreciate your time today. You have brought tremendous value. Thank you for becoming part of the MFW family.
Thank you for having me on. And I think that's my cue right here to to jump off and go do my mom life. I got a crying baby, but I so appreciate you having me on here. This was great.
Thanks again.
Thank you.